souls, come with me to a land of imagination. It's your favorite author, Lisa Walker-McCrae, with another enchanting story time from the pages of my novel, A Peculiar Kind of Love. Remember, you guys, these videos are for entertainment purposes only. First and foremost, y'all know what it is. Big praise to the Most High Yah, and a shout out to my hearers and listeners that are still chiming in. Much love from this way. So, with that love being shown, are y'all ready to fuel those imaginations and turn some pages? Cool beans. Chauncey, set the stage. Okay, my faithful earlenders. Quick recap before we dive into those imaginations. In our last story time, we went on an adventurous investigation to Mr. Styles with Dean and Drew. Now, this was by accident. Drew was on a mission in search of scissors so Dean could do her hair. Well, while on that mission, which took place in her office, Drew heard Mr. Styles rummaging around upstairs. Now, Dean got caught up in the investigation when she went looking for Drew. Let me tell y'all, it was quite an adventure. A candy dish got broken. The ladies had to hide in the exercise room where they tried to spy on the mystery man, only to find out nothing. Oh, but Drew did find out Dean was a little jelly of Chantel. But all that was squared away with a little heart-to-heart. And of course, let's not forget about Mr. P, who found himself on the floor after slipping on the broken candy dish. Boy, was he mad. Drew and Dean found it funny, but they dared not let Pete know that. Anywho, that's our recap. Now let's get involved and find out what shenanigans this village is up to now at the B&B. The night passed, and it's a couple of weeks later. Drew was loading groceries into her car when hearing a conflict between Mr. George and a timid young man. "Get out of here, kid. You're fired. Teach you to sleep in my storeroom," Mr. George yelled out. It took everything for Drew not to get involved, but the defeated look on the young man's face wouldn't allow her not to. Besides, Mr. George was known to be a bully, not only to his employees, but to a certain group of people as well. Looking over the hatch of her mid-sized SUV, Drew yelled out, "Hey kid, you okay?" The young man didn't say a word. He kept walking. Drew could see he was embarrassed by the public humiliation. "Hey kid, are you okay?" Drew yelled out again. The young man looked back at Drew, his face painted with disgrace. He spoke. "Does it look like I'm okay? I just lost my job, lady." Drew disregarded the smug comment, keeping in mind he did just get fired. Eyeing the young man closely, Drew couldn't believe her eyes. "Tevin, is that you?" she yelled out, recognizing the young man from previous engagements. If you guys remember, Tevin and Drew's encounters were at her 10-year high school reunion and Brooklyn's when her and Carl had their first sit-down. Tevin paused his steps. He looked back at Drew. With a squint of his eyes, the young man yelled out, "Miss McCain, Drew, is that you?" Drew cheerfully walked over to Tevin. Observing him from head to toe, her smile turned into sorrow and heartbreak. To see Tevin wasn't the thriving kid from before saddened her. Tevin looked like he'd been staying on the street and hadn't had a meal in months. "Tevin, what are you doing all the way out here?" Drew asked as she embraced him. Her heart broke even more. The stench coming from his body made Drew want to vomit and cry, but she held it together. Tevin didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Drew knew from his tears the young man was tired and weary. So, what did Drew do? Well, after her and Tevin got back to the B&B, she set one of Miss Sue's meatloaf platters down in front of him. "Eat up, sweetheart," Drew welcomed. Tevin licked his lips. His eyes were as big as headlights. He thanked Drew, informing it had been a long time since he had a meal like that. The young man went in on the meal, barely taking a breath between bites. Drew could see Tevin wasn't lying about not having a meal in a long time. His actions proved that. The meatloaf, mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, greens, and good old sweet cornbread didn't stand a chance. Slow down, Tevin. The food is not going to grow legs and walk away. There's plenty more, Drew assured. Tevin nodded his head, stuffing a spoonful of greens into his mouth. Drew eyed the young man. She had an idea why he was sleeping in Mr. George's storeroom, but needed to hear it from Tevin. It puzzled Drew. Tevin always seemed to be a well-kept kid. It never dawned on her he was homeless. Tevin, why are you sleeping in Mr. George's storeroom? Drew asked the question with no hesitation, catching the young man off guard. She could see it made him uneasy. Poking at his meatloaf, Tevin informed he didn't have anywhere else to go, so he slept there. Drew didn't understand. She asked, Tevin, where's your family? Do you have more cornbread? Tevin asked, shying away from the question. Yeah, sure. Drew stood up from the table to get Tevin more cornbread. She could tell the young man was becoming anxious. Drew also figured he'd enjoy his meal much better without the interrogation. She went to walk off but paused her steps. Drew spoke. Look, Tevin, before I leave, I'd like to extend an open invitation for you to stay here for a while. I'm the owner of this place and I could use some help around here. Now, I can't pay you much, but I can offer room and board. Tevin looked up at Drew by the surprise in his eyes. You'd have thought he just won the lottery. The young man couldn't believe Drew's kindness was real. No one had ever been that kind to him. Thank you so much, Drew. I'll do whatever you need me to do and then some. Drew gave Tevin a wink. It did her heart well to see the excitement and gratitude he had. Eat up, sweetheart, Drew smiled. So, a few moments passed. Drew, Mr. Pete, and Rain talked amongst themselves at the check-in counter. Tevin walked up full to capacity. He told Drew he was done eating and wanted to get started on whatever she needed him to do. Drew was impressed with the young man's eagerness. Oh, wow. Are we ready to work or what? She stated. Then Drew introduced Tevin to the crew. She started with Grumpy. Introducing the sweet old man was Pete. Mr. Pete mumbled under his breath, I got you old. Tevin chuckled. Pete was funny to him. Drew then informed Tevin Pete knew everything there was to know about Serenity Meadows and would be showing him the ropes. Pete muttered, pulling at the dingy Coors cap he wore. Drew eyed Pete. She could tell he was unhappy with the new help and would rather do the work alone and not have someone in his way. But he'd have to deal because Drew knew the task would eventually become too much for him. She threw Pete a wink. Drew then took Rain's hand. She could tell Tevin was anxious for the introduction by the glimmer in his eyes. Tevin, this beautiful young lady here is Rain Jacobs. She's our front desk clerk/director. Rain makes sure I stay in the loop. Both women laughed. Hey Tevin, nice to meet you. Rain extended her hand. Tevin took Rain's hand. It was love at the first hello. Her smile greeted him with grace. Her lips released the sweetest voice. Hey, he uttered, standing in a daze, consuming Rain's beauty, at the same time taking mental snapshots, storing them in his heart. The glow of her mocha skin could brighten the darkest room. Tevin loved the natural way she wore her hair. The hibiscus flower added flavor. Tevin could tell Rain was in tune with her spirit and nature. The energy she carried made him inquisitive about her soul. Tevin, Drew yelled for the third time. Mr. Pete shook his head. Goodness, boy, say something if you're gonna hold a lady's hand that long. Mr. Pete's thunderous voice broke Tevin's trance. He didn't realize Drew had called his name, nor did he realize he was still holding Rain's hand. I'm sorry, Rain. Pleased to meet you, Tevin greeted, handing Rain an interested smile. With a bat of her lashes, Rain handed Tevin a bashful smile. "Pleased to meet you," she replied. Pete eyed the pair and knew there would be trouble. "Come on here, boy, let me learn you something," Pete ordered. Tevin followed. Drew and Rain eyed one another. They both knew Tevin was in for a long day with Pete. Drew walked off shaking her head, hoping Pete didn't run the young man off. "Hold on, Drew," Rain called out, pausing her steps. She informed Mr. Kingston had registered his stay for the last week in August. "Yay, finally," Drew yelped out. "The publicity Serenity Meadows needs." Drew thought a moment to self. Looking at Rain, she asked, "If Mr. Kingston is coming in August, who's the guy in the nature room?" Rain shrugged her shoulders. The day passed and the evening was upon Serenity Meadows. Drew opened the door to the music room. "Tevin, you can stay in here until I get the pool house situated for you, and I'll ask my friend Jay if he has some clothes that'll fit you." Tevin told Drew he'd stay anywhere because Mr. Pete worked him like a Hebrew slave and he was tired. "I think old dude tried to kill me," Tevin laughed, and so did Drew. "When it comes to Pete, honey, there might be some truth to that," she stated. Drew then asked Tevin what he knew about being a Hebrew slave. He told Drew the Hebrews, also known as the Israelites, were the ancestors and were slaves in Egypt. Drew took a Bible from the nightstand drawer and handed it to Tevin, informing him there was more to the story than he could ever imagine. She then explained to the young man the Bible held a lot of their mystery and history, but he was on the right track. Drew further explained the ancestors were in fact slaves in Egypt, but Hebrew was their spoken language and Israelite was their nationality. Tevin was intrigued. Scanning the room, he was also impressed. "This is nice. Did you do this yourself?" he asked, admiring the decor. Everything in the room was music, from the pictures on the wall, the guitar, the saxophone, and the small juke joint men that played instruments of their own. The Wall of Fame was Tevin's favorite. Drew had all the greats on display: Teddy Pendergrass, the Gap Band, the Isley Brothers, Al Green, and even Tupac. "This room is impressive. I can't believe you've done all this." "Thank you, Tevin. Todayah, the glory belongs to him," Drew stated. Tevin informed his mother was also talented like that. "Oh, so you do have a family?" Drew asked. Tevin was quiet. Examining the look on his face, Drew could tell Tevin knew he'd said too much, adding the fact he'd completely ignored the question. There was an awkward silence. Then Tevin spoke. "So, where did you get your ideas from?" he asked, pretending to be interested. Drew wasn't having it, honey. She told Tevin in order to build a trusting relationship, they had to be honest with each other, and she needed him to be honest with her right now. "What happened to your family, Tevin?" Tevin was hesitant, but he informed Drew he did have a family, they just didn't want him around. "Now, Tevin, why wouldn't your family want you around?" Drew inquired. Tevin took a deep breath, then exhaled. "Because I'm my father's son." Drew was thrown by Tevin's answer, but understood him completely. "Facts. What's understood doesn't have to be explained," Drew stated. Eyeing the young man, Drew could tell the load he carried was too heavy, so the least she could do was help him bear it for now. "Well, okay, darling, make yourself at home. If you need anything, let me know." Drew threw Tevin a wink and closed the door. Later on that night, Drew allowed the soothing milk bath she relaxed in to whisk her away to another world. Releasing every thought in her mind, Drew refueled it with the sweet sounds of jazz. "Todayah for this moment of peace," she whispered, coming one with self. Moments passed, Drew soaked, meditating on Yah's goodness. A few more moments passed. Drew's peace was interrupted by the sudden craving for Miss Sue's sea salt caramel cheesecake. She quickly removed herself from the bath. Throwing on her robe, Drew started her mission down the hallway to conquer the cheesecake. She hummed the jazz tunes implanted in her head. Between the milk bath and the instrumentals, Drew was relaxed to the point of I don't care. She was about to devour the last piece of pie and didn't care how many calories it contained. Drew was now searching the fridge for the last piece of pie but couldn't find it. I know darn well there was pie left here, Drew said to herself. She pushed through the milk, juice, and sodas, picking up, putting down treats throughout the refrigerator. Drew thought to herself, maybe Tevin had a midnight snack attack and ate it. She was disappointed in a way. Her taste buds were ready for the delightful treat. She continued her search in hope to find something to replace her craving. But Drew didn't have a taste for anything but that pie. She picked up the yogurt and put it back. She then looked over at the bread pudding sitting on the table. "Nope," she uttered. Drew then looked at the Oreos on the kitchen counter. "Nope," she said. Nothing seemed to appease her interest. Drew wanted that pie. "Forget it," Drew said to herself. She poured herself a glass of juice, then headed back to her room. Well, just as Drew walked out of the swinging kitchen doors, she ran smack dab into Mr. Styles, holding the last piece of pie. "I'm so sorry, excuse me," Drew apologized. At the same time, she took a step back to get a good look at the mystery man. Drew couldn't believe after all these weeks of isolation, she would finally get to meet the mystery man. Drew's pupils dilated with surprise. Her heart beat like an African drum. A consuming fire ran through her veins. "Marcus!" she yelped out, snatching the pie from his hand. Drew then ran off to her bedroom, trying to process who she just laid her eyes on. Yeah, she's gonna need that pie. "And Marcus, darling, when did you get out? Oh, my boy, you got some explaining to do. You done outdid yourself with this one." Woo! Y'all, there is so much more drama to this. Unfortunately, this is our story time for now and this chapter. But you guys are more than welcome to meet me back here at Imagination Station for chapter 29, where we'll find out just how Drew handles this situation with Mr. Styles. Or shall I say Marcus, darling. Until then, my faithful earlenders, put this in your mental. People ain't gotta like you. People ain't gotta love you. They ain't even got to respect you. But when you look in that mirror, you better love and respect what you see. Y'all bless this reading and yourselves. Smooches.